Okay, we're here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Today is going to be a very good and informative episode that I'm going to put on today. And obviously, it's surrounding the whole situation that's going on right now concerning the Buffalo shooting. Now, I'm sure many of you have noticed this already, and a lot of people have talked about this online, but I wanted to bring some more context to what's going on, right? As it looks right now, politicians, the mainstream media, and the whole Democratic Party are making it a point to speak on this issue from the standpoint of everything but it being an anti-Black racist attack. This has turned into a conversation about social media. The Buffalo shooting has turned into a conversation about white replacement theory. It's turned into a conversation about gun control. It's turned into a conversation about domestic terrorism. And the issue with that is this. Once it breaks away into all these different subcategories that have absolutely nothing to do with the fact that this is an act of anti-Black racist violence, and because they don't want to keep it there and they move it everywhere else, the domestic terrorism goes off in the January 6th nonsense. The social media aspect of it goes off into censorship and how they want to push all that. And the replacement theory goes off into immigration, because replacement theory, white replacement theory, as we know today, is a response, right? It's a response to the current immigration situation that's going on now in the United States. And you see even people like Reverend Al Sharpton running around out here doing his best. He was on MSNBC, I believe it was earlier today or maybe yesterday, telling Black folks that it should be bigger. What happened in the Buffalo shooting, it's bigger than Black folks. It should be about all of us. And I want to go through some of his tweets right now also as well, because it goes and shows you how the plan is to parlay this into a Democratic Party agenda, right? That has nothing to do with providing Black Americans with the necessary legislation and protections to protect themselves from anti-Black racism. So let me pull this up for you right now. Let me pull this on the screen for you. Okay, so right now, what you're looking at is Reverend Al Sharpton's Twitter page. Give me just a second, please. Now, what you're looking at right now is Reverend Al Sharpton's Twitter page. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you can see already what he's doing here. Oops, where did it go? It's already turning into some foolishness, right? Instead of New York State government passing, like say, a hate crime bill, some sort of a state form of a hate crime bill in New York, what they've done instead is announce new gun control laws. So here's a retweet from Reverend Al Sharpton, who was with Governor, I believe her name is Kathy Hochul. And it says, "I'm so proud to join Governor Kathy Hochul, Reverend Al Sharpton, and a few other peoples and others to announce prompt actions by the governor and legislator to protect New Yorkers against gun violence." Okay. You scroll down some more, you see Reverend Al Sharpton here. "We will not replace you, but we will disarm you." That was a quote from Reverend Al Sharpton, and this is the press conference that he is with the Governor Kathy Hochul announcing new gun control measures. So, is this about gun control? Is this about white replacement theory? Or is this about, as I heard our good brother Rob say, because he's live right now as well, the ongoing legacy of anti-Black racist violence? Clearly, they're moving away from that, and they don't want that to be the talking point. But why is that? Well, they can't focus on that the way that we would like them to for a multitude of reasons. But one of the reasons is this: coming off of the back of anti-Asian hate, right? And the anti-Asian hate laws that have been passed, and the hate crimes bill that was passed for Asians. If they acknowledge that this is an anti-Black racist attack, the way that they acknowledge that what was going on in Atlanta with the Atlanta spa shooting, if they acknowledge it in the same fashion, saying that this is an anti-Asian attack, then that means that now the United States government would have to do something about it by way of legislation that's specifically for Black Americans. And they're not going to do that because they can't do that. Why can't they do that? Because it goes against their policy of benign neglect. Now, I want to play a clip for you here real quick. And this is a Barack Obama, I believe it was back in 2011 or something like that. I forgot what year it was. But this is him telling Black Americans that it is not the American way. It is not what America does concerning writing legislation that's specifically for Black Americans. We don't do that here. These are his words, not mine.
Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you? This is for African Americans. If there was a banking crisis, then you target money for the banks. If there was a national disaster, you target your money for the national for disaster relief.
That's not how America works. America works when all of us are pulling together, and everybody is focused on making sure that every single person has opportunity.
Now, what I find interesting is this. When Barack Obama says that, that is something that only applies to Black Americans, because that energy is never kept when it comes to all other groups, ever. It's never kept when it comes to all other groups. And give me just a second. Let me put the camera back on me for a second, just so you can see me very briefly. If I sound a little bit more alive right now than I was when I first started, it's because I had to have the windows closed because there was some noise outside and I was hot. I was burning up and it was irritating me. But I'm back now. Okay. With a little bit more liveliness now that I can cool off. So let's get back into the discussion. Okay. So let's go back over here. So like I was saying, this is only reserved for Black Americans. Only. Because back when Barack Obama was in office, let's really get into it now, especially now that I've cooled off. When Barack Obama was in office, this is the same man. Let me see if I can find it. Do I have it up here? Matter of fact, I'm going to pull it up right now. Give me just a moment. I thought I had it saved already. And here we go. This is the same man that while he was in office, he delivered reparations to Holocaust survivors to the tune of $12 million. As you can see here highlighted in yellow, funds to be distributed over 5 years, 1/4 of 130,000 U.S. victims of Nazi persecution live under poverty line. Now, I wonder how many Black Americans who are descendants of American slavery live under the poverty line. I'm curious. And why is it that they don't get reparations, but Holocaust survivors in the United States get reparations paid by the United States of America when we're the ones that rescued them? We're the ones that freed them. It wasn't any of our business. We went over there and got them out of their captivity. But for some reason, the United States government has paid out reparations to Holocaust survivors, but they can't do it for Black Americans, specifically speaking, the descendants of American slavery. Now, the main reason that they can't do that is a little something called benign neglect. Many of you all know this already, but for those of you who don't and who are unfamiliar with benign neglect, I'm going to play a little video clip that I clipped up over here from an old video that I did about 2 years ago. The video, if I'm not mistaken, is called Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, I think in the history of benign neglect. If I'm not mistaken, that's what that video is called. I made it about 2 years ago. If you want to watch the whole video, just go to the YouTube main channel, and it's on the homepage. But this is benign neglect in a nutshell. When Barack Hussein Obama, America's first biracial president, was asked the question, why not target the Black community directly? And he replied,
No.
For disaster relief.
That's not how America works.
Obama was 100% correct when he stated that's not how America works. In fact, it hasn't worked that way since 1970, because this was the year that Daniel Patrick Moynihan, advisor to President Richard Nixon, submitted his 10-page memorandum to the president. And the opening paragraph reads, "As the new year begins, it occurs to me that you might find useful a general assessment of the position of Negroes at the end of the first year of your administration and of the decade in which their position has been the central domestic political issue." Now, the memorandum would go on to chronicle the decade of the 60s, discussing the progress made by Black Americans as well as their shortcomings that still needed improvement. But it's not until page 7 that the two words that would annihilate Black American politics for the next 50 years would appear. The time may have come when the issue of race could benefit from a period of benign neglect. The subject has been too much talked about. The form has been too much taken over by hysterics, paranoids, and boodlers on all sides. We may need a period in which Negro progress continues and racial rhetoric fades. The administration can help bring this about by paying close attention to such progress as we are doing, while seeking to avoid situations in which extremists on either race are given opportunities for martyrdom, heroics, histrionics, or whatever. Greater attention to Indians, Mexican Americans, and Puerto Ricans would be useful. I'm going to repeat that last sentence again. Greater attention to Indians, Mexican Americans, and Puerto Ricans would be useful. Now, you see, it's at this moment that the American government made its decision to ignore Black politics and shift the conversation to Native Americans and immigrants. Now, fast forward to 2020, and that list now also includes not only Native Americans and immigrants, but the LGBTQ, as well as women's issues by way of feminism, all the while ignoring Black American politics. Now, like I said, that only applies to Black Americans. It doesn't apply to anybody else, because in this clip that I'm going to play for you right now, and I spoke about this in the last live stream recently this year, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, gave the AAPI community between $20 and $30 million, right? She gave between $20 and $30 million to the activist arm of the AAPI community for them to do whatever they need with it to lift their community up. Let me play this news clip for you right now.
Governor Hochul announced millions of dollars in funding for community organizations that assist Asian Americans. A total of $10 million is going to help the communities, which were hit hard in New York by COVID-19 and a rise in hate crimes. The funding will go toward various services, case management, and mental health support. In addition to helping marginalized communities, Governor Hochul says it also sends a strong message against bias incidents.
We will continue to fight back against every form of hate as it rears its ugly head. We have your backs, and we stand with the Asian community, 1.6 million strong here in the state of New York.
$6.8 million will go to the Asian American Federation, which will direct funding to 59 organizations.
Like I said, that policy is only reserved for Black Americans. Everybody else gets whatever they want. They make it rain on every other group. The government makes it rain on the AAPI community. They make it rain on Native Americans to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars. But when it comes to you, no, we're going to turn this conversation that's happening about the Buffalo shooting into white replacement theory, into gun control, into social media censorship, and how we need to do a little bit something more about, making sure that misinformation doesn't get out there to corrupt the mind of young 18-year-olds. Has anybody noticed how they keep saying the age of the shooter as if that matters? He's only 18. He's only 18. Well, so what? He's a grown man. That was a grown man that went into that store and pulled the trigger on those people. Okay. But let's go back to the news clip that I just played for you. And before we do that, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. If you're new to the channel and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Please share this video out, because like I said, my live streams sometimes don't tend to get the traction that my regular uploads do. And also, if you have an appreciation for the information that you get on this channel and that I'm giving you right now, you can show your support through CashApp, as well as the super chat button. And you could also join Patreon as well. Or you can become a channel member by hitting the join button that's next to the subscribe button. All right, now let's carry on. Concerning what was said in the news clip, right? In the news clip, this woman spoke about how the reason that the AAPI community is getting the kind of money that they are is because how hard they were hit by the big 19. We all know what that is. As well as the rise, right, of anti-Asian hate in 2020. So that's why they're receiving all this money. But let's get into who was really affected the most by the big 1-9, and who is the main target of hatred in this country as far as demographics are concerned. And I got a lot of data and statistics that I want to go through right now, but we're going to blow through it relatively quickly. So let's get into all that, okay? Because the only thing, honestly, that Kathy Hochul can tell the good people of New York, and especially our brothers and sisters in New York, in Buffalo, I mean, is how much money she's about to shell out to them. That's the only thing that she should be saying. Anything outside of here's some money for the Black community in Buffalo, anything outside of that is BS and is not worth listening to, and she should be challenged on all fronts on it. The fact that she just passed some nonsensical gun control law, and it is nonsensical. It's nonsensical given the fact that when it comes to everybody else, they receive cash no matter what happens to them. There's money being exchanged to that community, but when it comes to the Black community, all of a sudden, yeah, we can't do that anymore. Now let's get into those statistics that I was talking about. Give me just a second while I pull this up. Now, as all of you know, I'm going to blow through this quickly because you've seen this before. According to the FBI data, in 2020, there were 8,000, we'll just round it out, 8,000 total hate crimes. Out of the 8,000 hate crimes, around 3,000 of them occurred to the Black community. 2,871 to be exact, right? So 2,871 Black Americans were victims of hate crimes, all right? But when you scroll over here to anti-Asian, I don't think I pulled it up. Give me a second. I'm over here talking and I'm not showing you the screen. My apologies. Here it goes. All right, that's better. That's why you got to have two screens going at the same time so I can see how silly I look. Okay, so now here's the FBI data, all right? And like I said, many of you have seen this before already. Let me scroll down again for those of you who haven't. The most hated group of people in this country are Black Americans, period, according to the FBI, okay? In total in 2020, there were 8,263 hate crimes. Of that 8,000, 2,871 were committed against Black Americans. Only 279 were committed against Asians, okay? Now let's figure out who was hardest hit by the big 1-9. Once again, Black Americans. As you can see here in a CNN article back in September 3rd of 2020, it reads, and I have to do a little self-censoring, Black Americans hit hardest by the health situation feel they're hurt, but both the health situation and inequities tied to race. I know it's a little bit hard to, it's a little bit cringy when I have to self-censor, but, I'm just not saying these words right here that I have highlighted. When you're on YouTube, you just got to be careful and stay away from that kind of stuff. Nonetheless, the fact of the matter is that the most hated group of people in this country, the most brutalized people in this country, those who suffer the most from hate crimes and being victim of hate crimes are not only Black Americans, but you were also hit the hardest by the big 1-9. Okay. But now let's get even tighter into the data concerning New York. All right. Because Governor Kathy Hochul, like I said, issued out between $20 to $30 million to the AAPI community because of how wild the anti-Asian hate is. It's so bad. So here goes all of this money. Well, let's get into some of that. Now, what you're looking at right here, this is from the California Criminal Justice Research Report. Okay, so this comes from the Criminal Justice Department of the New York government. This is the annual report of hate crimes in New York in 2016. All right. And what I'm going to read off to you is a 2016 report, 2017 report, 2018 report, 2019 report, and a 2020 report. There is no 2021 report yet. The 2021 report doesn't come out till September of this year, right? So this is the last 5 years of recorded hate crime in New York, okay? In 2016, as you can clearly see, the most frequently reported bias motives for hate crimes against individuals were anti-gay male, 26.1, anti-Jewish, 17.5, and anti-Black at 11.4. Now, when you go to 2017, Black Americans in New York take the #1 spot with 22.6%. When you go to 2018, Black Americans once again have the number one spot with 22%. When you go to 19, Black Americans actually dropped to number 4 with 12.8%, and leading the way. The most frequently reported biased motives for hate crimes against individuals were anti-Jewish, 28.9%, anti-gay male, 17.1%, anti-white, 14.7%. That's interesting. And then came anti-Black at 12.8%. Okay, that was in 2019. But here's what's really interesting now. In 2020, this was the year of anti-Asian hate. This was the year of, oh my God, this is crazy. This is unheard of. Asians are being attacked at such an absurd rate. This is that year. And this is the year and the statistics that all this money is being issued out to them based on by Governor Kathy Hochul, right? In 2020, Black Americans in New York were the number one targets for hate crimes. And let me scroll up a little bit so you can see hate crime in New York State 2020 annual report. And as you can see right here, the most frequently reported bias motives for hate crimes against individuals were anti-Black at 26%, anti-Jewish at 21%, anti-gay male at 11.2%, and anti-Asian at 10.3%. Okay? So clearly in the state of New York, out of the, 3 out of the last 5 recorded years of hate crimes in New York, 3 out of the last 5 years, Black Americans were the number one targets. And if you weren't the number one target, then you were top 3. But like I said just now, in the year of AAPI hate, right? In the year of AAPI hate 2020, in the city of New York, you were the number one targets. So where's your money at? Where's your $20 million? As a matter of fact, because you blow everybody out the water the way that you do concerning being victims of hate crimes, and also given the fact that there's more of you in the state of California, or why do I keep saying California, in the state of New York, right? Then there are Asians. At least I believe that's true. I may be wrong about that. Nonetheless, I do believe that there are more of you. You should actually, the Black community in New York should actually be receiving more, right? If the AAPI community was able to get exclusively for their community, between $20 and $30 million, right, to deal with hate crimes and to deal with the big 19 and to lift their community up, right, to provide the people of their community what they need, then Black New Yorkers should at least minimum be receiving what? Between 40 and 50 million. If the AAPI community got between 20 and 30 million, Black New Yorkers should be receiving at least 40 and 50 million dollars, right? That's how much you should be receiving. And like I said, that is the only thing that Governor Kathy Hochul should be saying right now. And shout out to my man Blacklight Revelations, Rob. Run us that check. Yes, Rob, Blacklight Revelations in the house. Run me that money. And that's the only thing specifically, and at this moment, because let's put the focus back on Buffalo, New York, and the brothers and sisters in Buffalo, New York. That is the main thing and the only thing, right, that they should be targeting. Miss us with the gun control, miss us with white replacement theory, miss us with social media, and oh my God, look at how this stuff is permeating throughout Twitter and Facebook, and I was influencing 18-year-olds. Miss me with domestic terrorism that automatically gets turned into January 6th and how the Republicans stormed the Capitol at January 6th. Miss me with all of that. Run me my money. How is Kathy Hochul going to close the racial wealth gap in Buffalo? That's what I'm trying to figure out, because that's the only thing that needs to happen, or that's the first thing I should say that needs to happen. The first thing that needs to happen is she runs the people of Buffalo, run them their money, give them that check. Then after that, you can start instituting some anti-Black hate crime bills on a state level and all that other good stuff. But run that money first. That's what needs to happen. Okay? Now let's carry on. Because, you know, the racism and the segregation in Buffalo, New York is real. All right. The racial wealth gap in Buffalo, New York is real. Right. This right here, let me switch the cursor really quickly. This was just from last year, February 4th of 2021. Okay. Governor Cuomo announces findings of New York investigation of redlining in Buffalo. Now, I just want to read a little bit of this before we move on. Okay. And please make sure you share this out with brothers and sisters in Buffalo. If you know anybody that lives in Buffalo, make sure you share this information out to them, because it's just really important that our brothers and sisters over there don't get played. It's really important that they don't get played, and that they don't get taken advantage of, and that this moment isn't something that's just simply used for the purposes of pushing Democratic Party BS agenda. Okay. And also, thank you, FBAK, for the super chat. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. That helps out a lot. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's get into this right now. Following Governor Andrew M. Cuomo's 2021 state of the state proposal to increase home ownership rates in communities that have been adversely impacted by redlining, the governor today announced the findings of a new report by the New York State Department of Financial Services on redlining in the Buffalo metropolitan area. Buffalo remains one of the most racially segregated cities in the United States. I'm going to read that again. Buffalo remains one of the most racially segregated cities in the United States decades after the practice of redlining and other forms of housing discrimination were banned by law. Okay? I'm going to read that one more time because I botched that a little bit, and that's very important. Buffalo remains one of the most racially segregated cities in the United States decades after the practice of redlining and other forms of housing discrimination were banned by law. DFS report found a distinct lack of lending by mortgage lenders, particularly non-depository lenders, continues today in Buffalo neighborhoods, with majority minority population to the minority with majority minority populations and to minority home buyers in general. Redlining, and we're going to get into that right when I'm done with this last paragraph, where it says where they're trying to spin this thing and turn this into people of color, minority, and marginalized groups. I'm getting ready to dismantle that with some more data. Okay, but redlining includes such illegal practices as refusing to do business in a neighborhood based on the racial or ethnic composition of a neighborhood's population, or imposing more erroneous terms on home loans in a particular neighborhood in a discriminatory manner. The population of the city of Buffalo is approximately 47% white, 36.7% Black, and 11.6% Hispanic or Latino. And the population of the metro area is approximately 77% white, 12% Black, and 5% Hispanic or Latino. According to a recent report in the city of Buffalo, 85% of people who identify as Black live in neighborhoods east of Main Street, which is where areas that were redlined in the 1930s are located. Give me just a second while for those of you who don't know, I live in I'm out here in LA, in South Central LA. Shout out to everybody that lives in LA, because if you can hear that in the background, there's a man who's honking his horn, selling like corn out of a basket and selling tamales out of a basket. All my LA people know what I'm talking about. He's honking the horn right now saying tamales. So I'm just waiting for him to pass by. He messed up my last sentence, but shout out to him. He's grinding. I guess he's doing what he got to do. Okay, now let me get back. Let me read that last sentence again. Before the tamale man messed me up. According to a recent report in the city of Buffalo, 85% of people were identified as Black live in neighborhoods east of Main Street, which is where areas that were redlined in the 1930s are still located. All right. So 85% of the Black community in Buffalo still live in the red line areas that they were placed into. All right. Now let's get into the whole redlining situation right now. Let's get into that. And thank you very much, brother by the name of Robert, who sent me a Cash App. I appreciate your support, Robert. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate your support. It's definitely needed. Now let's get into some data. Okay. That's what I want to do right now. I want to get into some data concerning this historical redlining that happened, and according to this article that I just read here from last year, is still going on in Buffalo. And what I want to get into concerning the data is this: as I encourage members, as I encourage those who are within the Black community of Buffalo to make sure you put the pressure on New York State officials, and most importantly, Kathy Hochul, to come up off that money the same way she did for the AAPI community, right? It's important that you don't get caught up in the trick bag of people of color, minority, and marginalized groups, and how we're gonna give you these programs and put together grant and loan programs for all minority people, right? In the city of Buffalo. No. Because based off that article that I just read to you, right? Based off that article alone concerning historical redlining that began in the 1930s, as it stated there, when you look at the demographics here, this is demographics of Buffalo, New York, all right? Right here, they're showing you in demographics, here's the racial makeup. That period of historical redlining was in the 1930s, in the 40s, in the 50s, and 60s, right? If you look here in 1940, the population of Buffalo was 96.8% white, 3.1% Black, Hispanic, and Asian, nothing, 0. All right. So now in between 1940 to 1970, so in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, it's not until you get to 1970 that now, concerning the Hispanic population, there's 1.6% Hispanic and 0.2% Asian. At that point in time, historical redlining was finished already. Now, we all know that technically to a degree it exists. But as far as what they were talking about in that last article, historical redlining is over. It's done. The damage was done already. By the time Asians and Hispanic moved into Buffalo, New York, that time period was finished. Okay? And at that point in 1970, Black Americans made up 20% of Buffalo, Hispanics only made up 1.6%, and Asians only made up 0.2%. So understand, this isn't about hate, because a lot of time when you point this kind of stuff out, people are like, oh, you hate immigrants, and you dislike, you sound angry with the AAPI community. You sound like you don't like Hispanics. It's not about not liking anybody. I like everybody. I get along with everybody. I got friends of all colors. All right. I live a diverse lifestyle. All right. I'm not a segregationist in that way. I got white friends, but it's not about all that. That's personal. When it comes to these politics, that's a whole nother beast. And when it comes to divvying up resources and making sure your people are straight, that's a whole nother beast. And I got to make sure that my folks get what's rightfully theirs by pointing out what's obvious based on the data. All right. So please, to my brothers and sisters in Buffalo, don't fall into that trick bag when you start demanding what's rightfully yours concerning getting the same amount of compensation that the AAPI got when the talk of the town was anti-Asian hate, anti-Asian hate, anti-Asian hate. Now when the talk of the town is supposed to be anti-Black hate, no, they want to parlay that and talk about gun control and all this other nonsense, okay? Now, what I want to do next is I want to get into a couple of video clips of Kathy Hochul, because what I want to do is I want to show everybody the difference between how everybody was talking when AAPI hate was popping off and the Atlanta spa shooting happened, where I believe 6 women of Asian descent were killed, unfortunately. Rest in peace to them, right? And I want to show you the difference between how everybody was talking when it came to them and how everybody talks when it comes to the situation here in Buffalo, New York. All right. So let me pull this clip up for you from Kathy Hochul right now. And the first couple clips that I'll play for you from Kathy Hochul, this is just her dealing with the news when it first broke, right, about the Buffalo shooting. So let me get into that. Let me move over to this side of the screen so I can play that video. And also, I haven't shown my face in a little. I just show you guys my face real quick, only because I got a haircut, so I'm feeling good, you know. you feel like Superman when you get a haircut, don't you, fellas? You feel like, yeah, I'm the man now. I got my haircut. I'm looking right. You know, I'm not ashamed to show my face on the live stream now. But you know, for those of you who are watching right now, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. If you're not subscribed and you're new to this channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure you share this video out to your family and friends. If you find this video valuable, if you find the information valuable, if you find that it's something that we need to hear, especially our brothers and sisters in Buffalo, make sure you share this on your social media page. And also, if you find value in the information that I'm giving to you, because you're not going to get this kind of talk on CNN, and you're definitely not going to get it on MSNBC on that trash show, Simone, that flopped 2 Saturdays ago. All right. You're not going to get this kind of information over there on Simone Sanders' show. If you value the information that I'm giving you here, you know, you can show your support via the super chat button. You can show your support through CashApp at $tdhiphop. And you could also join Patreon as well. Or you can hit the join button that is next to the subscribe button so you become a channel member. And before I move on to the next portion of the show, I want to say thank you very much to William M. Connor for your contribution, for your Cash App that you sent me. Thank you very much. I appreciate you for that. Everything helps. And also thank you to Dante. I believe the last name is Calendar, for joining Patreon. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everything helps. Now, let's get into Governor Kathy Hochul and her response, right? Her response to the news of the anti-Black racist violent attack that occurred. In this video clip here, right, it's about 6 minutes in total. Obviously, I'm not going to play the whole thing, right, but you can find it on YouTube. If you just type Kathy Hochul Buffalo shooting, there's about 3 to 4 actual, I don't want to call them lectures, but kind of press conferences that she did, right? And in this one here, the clips that I'm going to play for you, there's 2 of them. She spoke for 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, she never said Black people, not one time. She didn't say Black. She didn't say anti-Black racism. She didn't say African-American. She didn't say anything of that nature. The entire time she was speaking, the only time in a 10-minute period that Black or anything like that came up was when a reporter asked her, and he was way off in the back. It looks like I'm glitching right now, but forgive me for that. But it was a reporter who was way off in the back saying, hey, Kathy, what do you think about the predominantly Black community in Buffalo and their cynicism towards them getting justice for the shooting? Some dude way in the back was the only person that had the audacity to actually call it what it is. This is a predominantly Black neighborhood, and these are Black people that were affected by this racially motivated shooting. And of course, her response to that was, you know, well, we're all in this together, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure justice is served. And even when she was saying all that nonsense, she still wouldn't say, essentially, our names. So let's get into that real quick. I have 2 quick clips, and then we're going to start banging this out fairly quickly.
And to see that sense of security shattered by an individual, a white supremacist who has engaged in an act of terrorism and will be prosecuted as such, in a cold-hearted, cruel, calculating way. A military-style execution targeting people who simply want to buy groceries in a neighborhood store.
This was not a military-style execution of people just trying to buy groceries in a store. What this was a military-style execution of Black Americans by a white supremacist. That's what this was, a military-style execution of Black Americans, anti-Black racism by a white supremacist. She refuses to call it what it is, though. And there are so many. You all don't understand how many clips that I actually have saved on my laptop that I can't play all of them, because I'd probably be up here for 3 hours. And you all know, if you're a normal subscriber to this channel, you all know how I am about staying on a live stream past 1 hour, and we're already at 45 minutes. So I can't play them all for you. But I mean, my God, everybody from Pete Buttigieg to everybody, even in the cases that they do bring Black Americans up, it's like you're an afterthought. It's like the Black Americans of Buffalo, New York, they're an afterthought. They say them last, at the end of their lecture, at the end of their speech, at the end of the press conference. Or even if it's in the middle, it's said very briefly, but then immediately they say Black people. And then they start saying all this other kind of stuff, other gun control, anti-Semitism, xenophobia. And they start piling all this other nonsense on top of it, instead of keeping the focus where it's supposed to be, on anti-Black racism. Let me get into this next clip by Kathy now.
And certainly the fact that this act of barbarism, this execution of innocent human beings, could be live streamed on social media platforms and not taken down within a second.
This was not an execution of innocent human beings, okay? This was an execution of Black Americans by a white supremacist that was live streamed for the world to see, in the same vein and in the same fashion that his ancestors, who were anti-Black racists, used to publicly lynch Black Americans, specifically the descendants of American slavery. They would publicly lynch them. And then all of the Mzungus would stand and take a group photo underneath the dead body that's swinging from the tree. And then they would take that photo and they would sell them in grocery stores and corner stores as postcards, okay? Like my brother Rob said in his live stream earlier, what needs to be talked about and what needs to be focused on is how this is an ongoing legacy of anti-Black racist violence. That's what this is. Nothing more, nothing less. What I think his name is Peyton. What Peyton did was no different than what his ancestors did in the 1930s, 20s, and farther back, when they would hold public lynchings, take pictures of you underneath it while you're swinging from the tree, and then sell those off as postcards. He did this. He literally did the same thing. This is a legacy of anti-Black racist violence, but they won't call it as such. They just won't do it. Here's another clip from Kathy Hochul as well. And this is an example of her lumping everybody into the fold, right? She mentions Black people dead last, all right? On top of immigrants and I believe anti-Semitism and all this other nonsense she's talking. Let's get into this clip. This is her speaking at I believe it was a Black church the next day after the shooting.
Let our city, let Buffalo, New York, be the last city where acts of violence like this ever occur. We will be at the end of that list and not let that list continue ever again. Let it stop here in Buffalo, New York. And that is our call to action. And I'm calling out the social media platforms where this hate can be spewed and people are learning how to create guns and violence and weapons. And what this dissemination, this virus called white supremacy and nationalism, and this idea of replacement theory. Have you heard of this? Well, if you're watching Fox News, you're familiar with it because they talk about it all the time. And what that says is part of stirring up this anger in people and putting us against them is that the immigrants, the Jews, the Blacks are coming after us, the white people in this country, and they're trying to stir us all up. But I'm sorry, there's more of us than you. People who believe that God loves all of us. We are all children of God, and we have a right to live in security and safety.
You see how you were last on the list? She's talking about social media. She's talking about gun control. She's talking about white replacement theory. Jews and immigrants and blacks, like I said, when they do bring you up, you're an afterthought. You're an afterthought whenever they do bring you up. All right. Now, let me play another clip for you as well of Kathy Hochul. Then we're going to move on to our favorite person, Kamala Harris. All right. Everybody loves Kamala. Gotta love Kamala Harris. Very quickly, thank you, Lloyd Sky, for the super chat. I appreciate your support. Thank you, Marvin C. And also thank you very much to James A., who sent a Cash App. I appreciate your support. Everybody who's showing support, I thank you very much for the support that you show me. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I deeply appreciate it. And it's definitely much needed. A lot of work goes into finding, these clips and putting them together and getting these articles and stuff like that. So whenever, I don't want to say I'm rewarded in that way, but whenever you show your appreciation in that fashion for the work that I put in on this channel, is very encouraging for me. And it helps so that I can continue to do the work that I'm doing. All right. Because like I said earlier, you're not going to find this kind of stuff on CNN and MSNBC and anywhere else. All right. So let's carry on. Let me play this last clip from Kathy. And this was her yesterday in Buffalo with Joe Biden. Joe Biden spoke after her. But I just want to show you, because I want to drill this home, because this is the governor of New York who got done handing $20 to $30 million to the AAPI community when the same thing has happened. And nothing even happened to them in New York of this magnitude. What happened to them happened in Atlanta. But in New York, they're parading around statistics about how AAPI hate is up, anti-Asian hate is up, and it's skyrocketing. And the big 1-9, it affected them so bad. When all data I showed you shows that nobody was affected by hate crime and the big 1-9 as much as you, but she has millions, tens of millions of dollars for them. And for you, nothing. But she did sign a new gun control law with Al Sharpton sitting next to her. So I guess that counts for something, maybe. Not really. Let's get into this last clip of Kathy Hochul.
And you hear about them in Congress by certain people, and you hear about them on cable shows. It's not just buried in the web anywhere. So these hateful philosophies are starting to become mainstream, and they took hold in the mind of an 18-year-old who lives 3 hours from here. And he targeted this community, intentionally coming to this zip code because he could do maximum damage and death to people, not just any New Yorker, but he was targeting and wanted to execute Black New Yorkers. That's hard to comprehend, the depth of that hate. And it wasn't that alone, though. You can have that hate in your heart, and you can sit in your house and ferment these evil thoughts, but you can't act on it unless you have a weapon. And that's the intersection of these two crises in our nation right now. The mainstreaming of the hate speech and the racism and everything else that brought that person to this point, but also the access to military-style weapons and magazines, and it is that lethal combination that resulted in the loss of 10 decent, good people. We pray for them, but they're not with us because of that combination. So this is not just a call to action for the people of Buffalo, and they are rising up. You cannot believe the depth of their spirit and their resiliency. I've embraced them, I've hugged them, I've cried with them. We will get through this because this is Buffalo. We're tough. But this should not just provoke a conversation in this community. This needs to stimulate a national conversation about how we make sure that we're doing everything we humanly can to eradicate this evil and send it back under the rock from which it came. That is what we must do in our nation, and continue to work on the access to guns. Yes, the gun he acquired was illegal in the state of New York, but it still had the capacity to kill people. But you couple that with an illegal magazine from another state you brought in literally minutes away in Pennsylvania. You know how easy that is? That's why we need a national gun policy that's common sense like we have here in New York. We need this everywhere.
You see what happened in Buffalo? That's why we need gun control. All right. That's why we need to censor social media. That's why we have to have a strong, hard talk about white replacement theory. You know, they're even bringing out, they're pulling MAGA Republicans out of their hat right now. I haven't heard that word MAGA in so long, but they're trying so desperately to make this about everything but the legacy of anti-Black racist violence. They want to make it about everything but that. They're even pulling Donald Trump back out of their hat. They're pulling MAGA back out of their hat, MAGA Republicans, right? Anything but making it about the legacy of anti-Black violence, right? The legacy of anti-Black racist violence. They want to talk about anything and everything but that. Now, let's get into our good friend Kamala Harris, and we're probably going to about 15 more minutes of today's show, and then we'll be shutting it down. Right? Let's get into Kamala Harris. But if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed and you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. Share this video on your social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you can do so at. So hopefully this also gets out to our brothers and sisters in Buffalo, right? So they understand and make sure that they're not getting taken advantage of and played. I would hate to see moving forward all this is, because what they're trying to do is make this about everything but the Black community in Buffalo. But it's important that they get a message like this so that they understand, hey, these people aren't going to come over here and take advantage of us. You're going to give us some tangibles. You're going to break bread with the Black community in Buffalo the same way you broke bread with the AAPI community to the tune of $20 to $30 million. Okay. Also, thank you very much to those who have contributed to the super chat as well. I appreciate your support. Like I said, is very much appreciated. Thank you very much to Harlem Streets Tales. Thank you very much, Harlem Streets Tales. And also thank you very much to Carlton Banks. Thank you, Carlton Banks. Thank you, Carlton Banks. From the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? Carlton Banks. But let's get into Kamala, our good friend Kamala. And you're really going to see now the distinct and the differences between the reaction of how these politicians, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, reacted when the Atlanta spa shooting happened that led to the unfortunate death of, I believe it was 8 people in total, but 6 were of Asian descent. You're going to see their reaction on how they were straight to the point, how this is terrible anti-Asian hate. This is awful. But then when it came to the Buffalo shooting, they don't really know what's going on. They know this is some kind of act of white supremacy, but, I don't know, gun control, right? So let's get into Kamala Harris' response. And I want to make sure to point this out as well. Her finding out, the 2 clips that I'm going to play for you, her finding out and speaking on the Buffalo shooting and the Atlanta spa shooting were within the same time frame, meaning that it was the next day. So she had just as much information on the spa shooting as much as she did on the Buffalo shooting. But in the Atlanta shooting, she made sure to make it a point to stress anti-Asian hate. But when it comes to the Buffalo shooting, she doesn't even say your name. So let's get into that.
I'm going to just say a few words about an incident that is occurring, a horrible incident in our country, and then we're going to begin our conversation. But before I begin, I do want to talk about what happened in Georgia, in Atlanta. It is tragic. Our country, the president and I and all of us, we grieve for the loss. Our prayers are extended to the families of those who have been killed. And it speaks to a larger issue, which is the issue of violence in our country and what we must do to never tolerate it and to always speak out against it. The investigation is ongoing. We don't yet know, we're not yet clear about the motive. But I do want to say to our Asian American community that we stand with you and understand how this has frightened and shocked and outraged all people, but knowing the increasing level of hate crime against our Asian American brothers and sisters we also want to speak out in solidarity with them and acknowledge that none of us should ever be silent in the face of any form of hate.
Now, as she clearly stated, she doesn't know much about the situation and what took place and what it's about and why, but she knew enough to know we got to put an end to anti-Asian hate. Now, did she give that same energy to the Black community of Buffalo? Right? Did she give that energy to them? Did she make sure to drill the point home the next day when she spoke on the tragedy that happened with the Buffalo shooting? Did she say we have to put an end to the legacy of anti-Black racist violence that has been happening in this country for over 3+ centuries, 400 years, you can say? Nope, that's not what she did. She didn't even know who you are. She couldn't even say our names.
It's horrendous. It's horrendous. In our country, we have to recognize that we may very well be experiencing an epidemic of hate towards so many Americans that is wrong. It is taking on a level of violence in the case of what happened in Buffalo, and we've seen it in other places in our country. And we all must speak out against it. Hate against any one of us, we should interpret it as being hate against all of us as a nation. We are a nation that prides ourselves on our diversity as an element of our strength. And to see what has happened yesterday, an 86-year-old grandmother who had just been taking care of her husband in a nursing home, was just going to get some groceries. A security guard who had dedicated his life as a law enforcement officer and was known in the community to be one of the kindest, most gentle people who showed extraordinary heroism. I think we all have to know that this is something that we have to not only speak about, but we've got to do everything in our power as a nation to stop it. To stop it. There's too much at stake that we should be working at and thinking about. Not hating one another.
Shout out to Carlton Banks. Your comment made this stream for me. He said, she drunk? She sounds drunk, doesn't she? She sounds like she's drunk. She sounds like she was sipping a little bit of the sauce before she hopped on Air Force One. She took a quick hit before she spoke to reporters. That's what it sounded like. That woman is so unqualified. It is amazing how unqualified she is. And there were a lot of clips of her like that. You know what I mean? There's another one that came up. I'm not going to play. I didn't bother saving it to the computer. Like I said, I can play these clips forever and a day, right? But there was another clip of her. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this month is Asian American and Pacific Islander Month or Heritage Month, if I'm not mistaken. And Kamala Harris spoke at the White House, I believe she was, to honor this month, you know. And as she's speaking about, you know, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and things of that nature, she very quickly brought up, you know, Black people. She said Black people, you know, she did say it, you know. She brought up what happened in Buffalo. She said that they were Black people. All right, she said it. But like I said, then she quickly parlayed it into the spa shooting and into like anti-Semitic. Oh, she parlayed it into xenophobia and sexism. She bunched it all up together. Because like I said, you know, anything concerning Black Americans by themselves, particularly in this situation concerning anti-Black hate and isolation, no, we're not going to speak on that. We're not doing that at all, because that will require us to actually have to do something about it, right? It will require us to actually have to pass a anti-Black hate crime bill. It will require us to actually have to deliver reparations to the descendants of American slavery. Because like I said, I got it from Rob. Rob, I'm not going to keep giving you credit. I said I got this from Rob like 5 times already. Rob, that's enough giving you credit if you're still listening. But but like Rob said, I'm gonna give him credit for the last time. Like I heard him say on his live stream. I'm big on credit, you know, I'm big on giving people their credit. But like Rob was saying, this is an ongoing pattern, right, of the legacy of anti-Black racist violence in this country. This is the legacy of that. All right. Like I said earlier, if you're just tuning in, what Peyton did, right? What Peyton did by live streaming the execution of Black Americans in Buffalo was no different than what his ancestors were doing when they would hold public lynchings, and a group of them would take a picture under the swinging body, and then they would sell that photo as postcards in grocery stores and corner stores. He was doing the same thing his ancestors did, period. The legacy of anti-Black racist violence. And that's the only lens that this should be focused in. The moment somebody starts talking to you about gun control, they start talking to you about white replacement theory, they start talking to you about any social media and how we need to, stop all this that's happening on social media. Look at how this stuff is permeating. Look at how it took the mind, this white supremacy and white replacement theory, right? Look how these talking points that are on social media took over the mind of this young 18-year-old. I think I said this earlier, but they keep stressing that he was 18. He was 18. It took over his mind. It didn't take over nothing. He's a grown man. I saw the video, by the way. I saw the video of what he did. I can't tell you where I saw it at, but I saw it. And that was a grown man that did what he did. And the death penalty, in my opinion, especially based off of what I watched, the death penalty, in my opinion, would be, I should be careful what I say. I'm not gonna get myself in trouble. I'm not gonna get myself in trouble on YouTube. Let's just carry on. Let's just carry on before I get myself in trouble and say something the YouTube doesn't like. All right. But let's move on now to our good buddy Joe Biden, because we all love Joe. He said that he would have our backs. We had his during the election. I know there's about 784 of you in here right now. I know all 784 of you. I know y'all voted for Joe Biden. Yes, you did. Don't even, you can front on the internet. I know y'all be lying on the internet. You voted for him. Yes, you did. Let's get into what our good buddy Joe Biden had to say concerning AAPI hate crimes and the Atlanta spa shooting, and how he was pressing in and driving it home that we have to drive out anti-Asian hate. We have to pass this anti-Asian hate crime bill, and anti-Asian hate has to stop here. He was going in. Let me play this quick clip for you.
I said from the beginning of my campaign for president that we needed to come together, that we needed to unite as one people, one nation, one America. I said in my kickoff speech in Philadelphia, I said that very same thing when I spoke at Gettysburg. I said that in my inaugural address. And I believe with every fiber on my being, there are simply some core values and beliefs that should bring us together as Americans. One of them is standing together against hate, against racism, the ugly poison that has long haunted and plagued our nation. The Vice President and I, as I said, met a little bit earlier, just before this, with leaders from the Asian American community here in Georgia. We talked about Tuesday's mass shooting, about another example of public health crisis of gun violence in this country. 8 people killed, 7 women, 6 were of Asian descent. All fellow Americans, each one of them we mourn. Their families are left with broken hearts and unanswered questions. And the investigation is ongoing, and the Vice President and I are being regularly updated by the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI, working closely with Governor Kemp and Mayor Bottoms and local officials. But whatever the motivation, we know this: too many Asian Americans have been walking up and down the streets and worrying, waking up each morning the past year feeling their safety and the safety of their loved ones are at stake. They've been attacked, blamed, scapegoated, and harassed. They've been verbally assaulted, physically assaulted, killed. Documented incidents of hate against Asian Americans have seen a skyrocketing spike over the last year, let alone the ones that happened and never get reported. It's been a year of living in fear for their lives, just to walk down the street. Grandparents are afraid to leave their homes. Small business owners targeted and gunned down. Attacks on some of the most vulnerable people in our nation, the elderly, low-wage workers, and women. In fact, Asian American women suffered twice as many incidents of harassment and violence as Asian American men. We're learning again what we've always known. Words have consequences.
He said it's been a year that the Asian American community have been living their lives in fear to do something as simple as walking down the street. How many years have Black Americans, and I always like to be specific, how many years have the descendants of American slavery been living in fear in this country? How many years? 400? Think with 1619. If we're going from 1619 to now, it's over 400 years now. Still no hate crime bill for Black Americans. Still no reparations. But after 1 year, 1 year of hate, Asians received a hate crime bill alongside with millions of dollars. But Black Americans, zero, nothing. You get nothing, right? Now, I got about 2 more clips from Sleepy Joe during this speech. So I'm going to play those for you right now.
The conversation we had today with the AAPI leaders and that we're hearing all across the country is that hate and violence often hide in plain sight. It's often met with silence. That's been true throughout our history. But that has to change because our silence is complicity. We cannot be complicit. We have to speak out. We have to act. In my first week in office, I signed an executive order directing federal agencies to combat this resurgence of xenophobia. The Department of Justice is strengthening its partnership with the AAPI community to prevent these crimes, in addition to its other work to take on violent extremists and domestic terrorism. I'm calling on Congress to pass and get to my desk the 19 Hate Crimes Act.
Called on Congress. When that spa shooting happened and those 6 descendants of Asians were tragically killed, he called on the Senate, get that bill to my desk now so I can sign it. All right. Is there a black hate crime bill coming to his desk? Is he even demanding that? Has he said anything about that? Has he said anything about any type of legislation for Black Americans in the midst of all of this? Has the governor of New York said anything about any type of legislation for the Black community of New York, and specifically of Buffalo, New York? The answer is no. There's been no talk of legislation. There's been no talk of what they're going to do specifically for Black Americans. The only thing you've gotten is conversations about gun control and foolishness like that. And it's not that I'm against gun control. I don't think anybody's against gun control. I want to clean up a little bit. It's not that I'm against gun control, right? I'm not against that kind of stuff. But don't play games with me, is my whole thing. If you want to talk about, things like, I don't know, gun control and white replacement theory, and whatever, domestic terrorism, that's cool. But don't talk about it and try to sell it off of the back of our pain and off the back of our suffrage. It's at that point that I take offense. And now I'm not messing with any of it. You're not getting a vote for me. You're not going to scare me into voting for you, because that's what Joe Biden and the Democratic Party is looking to do. They're looking to scare you into getting them to show up to the midterms. And what I want to see from Black Americans moving forward I want to see us stop being so triggered over the words racism and white supremacy, right? When you're no longer triggered by that and you're able to keep a stone cold face when you hear it, it's at that moment that you'll be able to respond and act accordingly when situations like this occur, to make sure that you're getting out of it what you need. Because right now they'll say white supremacy here and white supremacy there, and the white supremacy is a cancer, white supremacy is a virus, white supremacy is this and that and the third. And the thing is, with Black Americans, we still, many of us, right, the greater body of Black Americans, we still assume that white supremacy is automatic. When you say that, you're automatically talking about anti-Black racism. At one point, that was the case. In this day and age, that's not what that means anymore. In this day and age, as it's told by mainstream media, white supremacy is a threat to all people of color, minority, and marginalized groups. And that's where we get wrapped up and tricked into just hearing white supremacy and just running. Oh, God, white supremacy, this is crazy. We got to put an end to it. No, I got to go vote. And then you go vote, you get these people in office, and they start doing stuff for every other demographic group except for you, right? So we got to stop being triggered by that. I hear racism, I hear white supremacy, I'm looking like this. Run me my money. That's the only thing you need to be saying, right? That the good people of the Black community in Buffalo need to look like this. Kathy Hochul, run me my money, just like you did for the AAPI community. Stop talking to me about all this other stuff. And you're not going to scare me into showing up to the midterms, because at the end of the day, even when you're talking about hate crime bills and things of that nature, people are going to do what they're going to do at the end of the day. It's just what it is. So with that being said, run me my money. Okay? Run me my money. Now let's get into these last, I only got 2 more clips from Joe Biden, and then we're done with today's show. Now, this was Biden's response when he was at Buffalo yesterday, right? He was at Buffalo yesterday. He was giving and delivering his speech, right? And while he was delivering his speech, in a nutshell, I'll round this up really quickly, and then we could all go on with our day. That speech in total was 16 minutes long. In between the intro from the mayor of Buffalo to Jill Biden, Joe Biden's wife, who spoke for like 2 minutes or maybe less than that, then Joe Biden spoke. In that 16-minute time period, the word Black people didn't come up until the last 2 minutes of I believe it was 16-minute and 52-second long speech. In a 16-minute and 52-second long speech in Buffalo, addressing the Black community in Buffalo over the shooting that took place, it wasn't until the last 2 minutes. You're talking about, he spoke for 15 minutes, and the last 2 minutes, like I said, you're an afterthought in all of this. Oh yeah, Black people, yeah. Now let's get back to gun control. That was what happened, right? So let me play these 2 clips for you real quickly.
We've now seen too many times the deadly and destructive violence this ideology unleashes. We heard the chants, "You will not replace us," in Charlottesville, Virginia. I wasn't going to run, as the senator knows, again for president. But when I saw those people coming out of the woods of the fields in Virginia, in Charlottesville, carrying torches, shouting, "You will not replace us," accompanied by white supremacists and carrying Nazi banners, that's when I said, no. And I, honest to God, those who know me, Chuck, I wasn't going to run for certain. But I was going to be darned if I was going to let anyway. I'm going to get going.
Biden, you better stop lying on God's name. Stop lying on God's name. Biden said, honest to God. Does anybody here seriously believes that after the Charlottesville incident, that was when Joe Biden knew, that's when I knew it's time for me to run for president? Didn't Charlottesville happen like in the beginning of Trump's term? Wasn't that like year one or year two. It wasn't even at the end. That was like at the beginning of Trump's term. If I'm not, somebody please correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. If I'm not mistaken, that was like year two of Trump's presidency. If I'm not mistaken. You're telling me that in year two of Trump's presidency, when Charlottesville took place, right? The little, what happened over there, and that the white girl that unfortunately got ran over by a car because you had some crazy white supremacists that were driving through the crowd. You know, it was at that moment that Joe Biden realized, I'm going to run for president. You lying. You stop the cap. You're a liar. Okay. Joe Biden was the last man off the bench to run for president for the Democratic Party. You had all them folks, Cory Booker and Kamala and Elizabeth Warren and a host of people running for president. And they pulled you off the bench because they were all weak and Donald Trump was going to smash all of them. And they said, Joe Biden, you got that Obama connection. And everybody still loves Obama. So you get up there and you go run for office. And that was what he did. That man's a liar. Now, let me play this last clip for you real quick. And this was the portion when he finally said Black people or Black Americans, whichever one. After 16 minutes of talking, or after 15 minutes of talking, with only 2 minutes left in his speech, after 15 minutes, he finally, as an afterthought, brought up Black people. So let's get into that. Let me play this last clip. It's only 48 seconds, and then we're done.
As President of the United States, I travel the world all the time. And other nations ask me, heads of state in other countries, ask me, what's going on? What in God's name happened on January 6th? What happened in Buffalo? What happened? They'll ask. We have to refuse to live in a country where Black people going about a weekly grocery shopping can be gunned down by weapons of war deployed in a racist cause. We have to refuse to live in a country where fear and lies are packaged for power and for profit. We must all enlist in this great cause of America.
So that was when he brought up Black people. That was the last 2 minutes. Like I said, the man spoke for roughly 17 minutes. The last 2 minutes was when he brought you in as an afterthought. After getting everybody riled up about gun control and white replacement theory and all the other things that I've repeated like 30 times already, right? That was what he said. And what I find interesting, another lie that he told, this was a lie. He told a lie that I played you earlier, and this is another lie. He says, I'm the president of the United States. I travel all around the world. And the heads of state in other nations, they always ask me, they say, hey, what's going on over there? Huh? What's happening over there in the U.S. with all the, with the Atlanta shooting and the January 6th in Buffalo, right? What's going on over there? That's a lie, right? Because I'll tell you what the world has been telling Joe Biden, all right? Per the United Nations. The world hasn't been asking him what's going on over there. The world has been asking Joe Biden, when are you going to run the descendants of American slavery their reparations? That's what they want to know. When you going to run those reparations? That is what the world has been asking Joe Biden. UN panel says the U.S. owes reparations to African Americans. This was in September. This article was written September 9th of 2016. Okay, this is from PBS NewsHour. That's what the world has been asking Joe Biden. They haven't been asking you what's going on out there. They said, when you going to run that check? When you going to run them people their money? That's what they've been asking you, Joe. That's what, run me my reparations check. All right. I'm going to read this real quick, then I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. The United States owes African Americans reparations for slavery, a recent report by a United Nations affiliate group said. The United Nations Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent said that compensation is necessary to combat the disadvantages caused by 245 years of legally allowing the sale of people based on the color of their skin. The United Nations group warned that the U.S. has not confronted its legacy of racial terrorism. The United Nations report also linked past injustices to recent police killings of Black men that have sparked protests across the U.S. Contemporary police killings and the trauma that they create are reminiscent of the past racial terror of lynching, the report said. The U.S. created a reparations plan in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War that stated that freed families would be granted 40 acres of tillable land and a mule from the Union Army. The plan proposed by Union General William T. Sherman after meeting with Black community leaders in Savannah, Georgia, was reversed by President Andrew Johnson, and the land was returned to plantation owners. All right? So, in short, Joe Biden once again is lying. They're not asking you, what's going on over there? What's going on over there, Joe? What's January 6th? What's going on over there with Buffalo? They were asking me, what's going on over there? No, they don't ask you that. They're asking you when you're going to run the descendants of American slavery their reparations. That's what they were asking you, okay? And with all that being said, that does it for today's video. It's been an hour and 25 minutes. You all know how I am. This is 25 minutes overtime for me. So there's no need for me to carry on and beat a dead horse. You all get the point. You all see what's happening here. And I just want to make sure that this stuff is getting out there so that the people of Buffalo aren't getting taken advantage of. All right. Because as of right now, they are. As of right now, they're getting taken advantage of. But hopefully this information gets out to them, and not just my video. There's so many people that are speaking on this, doing a great job addressing this situation, how the Buffalo shooting has turned into a conversation about everything but the legacy of anti-Black racist violence. That's the only place where this conversation should be. Anybody else that's twisting the conversation and start talking about all this other stuff, all the other stuff is secondary. The focus should and must be on the legacy of anti-Black racist violence. And as far as what needs to happen in Buffalo, New York, what needs to happen over there is Kathy Hochul needs to run the Black community in Buffalo, run them their money. The same way you did for the AAPI community. You gave the AAPI community in New York City, you gave them between $20 to $30 million to deal with AAPI hate. How much more does the Buffalo community, the Black community in Buffalo deserve, as well as the Black community at large in New York? And with all that being said, that does it for today's video. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. All my social media links will be pinned in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to make sure you text tdhiphop to number 33222. That's tdhiphop to number 33222. That way I can send you a direct text notification whenever I release a new video. But it also serves as a protection plan for myself in case YouTube gives me the axe. I'll be able to send you a direct link to where you can find me next. And last and not least, right? If you have the love and appreciation for the work that I put in on this channel, the number one way you can show your support to me is through Patreon. For only $3 a month, that helps put me in position to be able to take TD Hip Hop Media off of YouTube. Remember, the goal is not to grow big on YouTube, but to grow independent of YouTube. And until the next video, peace.